Hello, everybody. Today, I'm super excited to welcome Emily Kessler, who is the communication specialist at Gifted Travel Network. A brief introduction of Emily and I came in the form of Emily being an AI specialist. So I said, you have to come on to the podcast because AI is such a hot topic now. And I'm finding that I feel like a year ago, it was a hot topic in a way of like, it's the new greatest thing. It's going to change our life, but nobody really knew like what it was or how to use it. And now I feel like it's constantly coming into my life in ways that are like not expected and all outside of my business as well into my personal life in ways that it's like, if you're not using it, you're absolutely being left behind. And so it should be a tool that is a part of your just of your daily existence. And so I'm thrilled
Right.
to kind of get your ideas and your perspective on AI. So Emily, officially welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So as the communication specialist at Gifted Travel Network, communications is kind of what we do all day, every day as travel
Yep.
advisors. I
Yes.
mean, we were just chatting before hitting record, and it's kind of like we're either communicating in email, direct correspondence with clients, or we're communicating in an itinerary in some way, shape, or form, or we're communicating on our website or in an email, like newsletter type of drip campaign. Basically, we're just communicating all day, every
Right.
day. So when you think high level about AI and communication, like what comes to mind in terms of why these two facets of our business work so well together and why AI should absolutely be a part of our communication strategy?
I think they work so well together because, like you said, every single day we're communicating. I think there are times where I communicate very clearly, and I think there are times where I may be so passionate, very similar to our industry, about what I'm talking about, and it might just sound like mush, jello. I don't know. I'm
Hmm.
getting ahead of myself, kind of. And I think one of
Hmm.
the major things I've seen that really gel that is AI can help you clearly speak or write what you're trying to get across and make it like very timely and efficient. Those are the two major things because we're busy everybody's busy. I always say that. And I think that being able to communicate openly, honestly, and clearly is big, especially when dealing with clients in this industry.
Absolutely. I think openly, honestly, and clearly when it comes to like how we work, what's the next step, what to expect from working together in my services, what to expect from this trip, what to expect from, a natural disaster happening in destination during your
Mhm.
trip. Like, there's like
Exactly.
there's just a lot of things going on in which, sometimes it is a friendly email of like, hey, it's so great to hear from you. You want to go to Greece? Cool, let's set up a chat. Like sometimes it is super chill and calm, cool, and casual, but there's a lot of communication in our businesses that speaking professionally and
Mhm.
succinctly and accurately is
Yes.
of utmost importance.
Very true.
So I'm curious to know when this topic kind of came about in some of your work with the travel advisors at Gifted Travel Network. What what was the general vibe that you were sensing from the advisors? Were you seeing that some advisors like never use it all? They're actually trying to push it away and reject it. And you were on the team of like, no, let me not convince you to use AI, but like, let me show you the world of AI. Or have you seen advisors that are just like, I'm using it all day, every day. Like this is a new part of my existence. So now show me how to like enhance that experience. Like where are you finding the majority of advisors falling on the spectrum?
So truly, I I found that we had a kind of almost three groups. We had people who were adapting to it, enjoying it, using it, but they were like, am I using this to my full potential? I'm not sure. I have a few questions. This is a perfect person to ask me, type of thing. Then I had a middle ground group who was using it, getting pretty good results, but like at the same time didn't know if they were using it correctly. They were like, I feel like it could be better. So we had the people who were using it, getting things, but thought they could enhance it. People who were using it weren't really sure. And then I had a group of people
Hmm.
who never touched it. Yeah, didn't even know where to start. And I think that
Sure.
that was amazing because to cater to all three of those groups, you kind of still have to start at the beginning because even if you've been using it and think you're an expert, it's like you hear something else and you're like, oh, wait a minute, that's how you're supposed to use it, or I should do that. You still don't know.
Yeah, I will definitely say I feel like I'm in that camp of like I am using it. I am getting some pretty decent results, but I'm finding myself asking questions or prompting in a very similar way every time and not
Right.
necessarily like getting very creative about how I prompt. And then I'll hear how somebody else uses it and I'm like, "Oh, I never thought
Yeah.
of that." Like what made you think of doing it like that? So
That
I
is so
do think
true.
that like just having like open conversations of how you're using it, where you're using it, what results, what type of results you're looking for, what types of prompts you're using. I think like just speaking like very openly about this with colleagues can potentially give people some really, really great ideas that are different than the way that they might be using it.
I completely agree.
Okay, so first, I think my first question for you is which AI tool do you like to use? Because in addition to talking with people about AI and about the prompts that they're using and about how they're using it in their business, then I also feel like I'm hearing about a new AI tool every other day. And so if I were to truly try to work AI into my daily existence, I feel like there's like 15 AI tools to choose from. So what are your favorites? How do you differentiate one from the next? And then ultimately, how can someone decide like this is the one that's going to be best for what I'm trying to accomplish?
And I think that's a great question and a perfect place to start, especially if, you've been on both sides of that spectrum. You've been using it or you haven't been using it. Personally, and I think sometimes this question can be a little opinionated, I use or have been using ChatGPT the most for probably 2 years now, 2.5. But I recently started using Google Gemini. And one of the features I loved about Gemini, which kind of made me switch, was the microphone. There's a microphone tool now, so you can speak to it and you can upload images. So now ChatGPT also has that. But I think the best advice, and this is what I said to a lot of our advisors as well, is that you should be open to trying everything and I should say, in the terms of testing everything, because I have some colleagues who also use it regularly, like I do, and they love Toby AI by Voyager Social. That's like their favorite. And I like Toby AI as well. I need to play around a little bit more, but I've noticed I'm just so ChatGPT. This is weird to say it. ChatGPT knows me, and I feel like I know it. So we have that relationship where it'll give me like an output, and I understand, or it understood exactly what I was saying, and it's perfect, good to go. I don't even have to refine it. So a good place to start is I try everything is my go-to.
So, what do you find like if someone were to sit down and try everything, like what do you find is really the difference? Is it like the user interface and like just the experience navigating the tool, or is it actually it's less about that and it's more about you put in the same prompt in five different tools and the output or what it comes back with is a little bit different? Like what how should we be comparing and contrasting these options?
Great question. And I actually do think it's both. Like when I look at ChatGPT and we'll use Toby AI for instance, the user interface and the screen and the way it looks is definitely very different. So that was one of the first things I noticed. One of the things about, for instance, Google Gemini and ChatGPT was I did use the same prompt, and I actually was asking it for a presentation to explain the other one to me. And I liked Gemini, Google Gemini's response better. I thought it was a little bit more thorough than ChatGPT's was. So I did use the same prompt and kind of tested it that way. I just liked that output better in that case.
Okay. And do all of these tools have free versions where you can literally just try all of them and kind of see which ones you go
They do.
toward?
The majority of them do. I know ChatGPT 4.0 is free up to a certain amount of uses. So, like, chatting back and forth with it about like 6 or 7 times. I don't know the exact number, but
Mhm.
Gemini also has a free version. Toby AI Voyager Social is paid. Microsoft Copilot has a free version that I know of. I've tried a few things there, and I'm trying to think. There are definitely a few more I'm forgetting. but I know that there's always even like a 7-day free trial on a few things,
Sure.
or that
Hmm.
the opportunity to try it for free. And then always,
Hmm.
you can switch to the paid version.
Amazing. So I know that this is already off topic, but here we go. This is this is what I do. You mentioned that audio is now a part. Well, it was Google Gemini that kind of interested you there, and now that is a part of ChatGPT. So how are you using the audio feature?
So earlier, actually, I was looking at a presentation that I did on AI, and I was thinking of some of the key points that I had in the presentation for when I was going to hop on this and record with you. And I was like, you know what? Let me like talk these through. Maybe I'll remember them better. That's just how I am. Like if I write something down or if I talk it through, I remember.
Mhm.
And I went on to Gemini and I actually went through the slides and talked through what I wrote on the slides and was like, turn this into a conversational podcast episode. And it told me like, user one, user two. Of course, I didn't give it specifics like, my name is Emily, and the person that is interviewing me is named Whitney. Like, if I did,
Yeah.
I bet it would have said that. But yeah, it gave me like kind of back and forth and made it a conversation, which was kind of cool.
That's interesting. You should have sent me those notes,
I
and we
know.
could have like an AI generated conversation. That's so interesting because the audio feature, I am like, whenever I have an opportunity to leave a voice memo to even my friends instead of typing, I will do that. Whenever I have an option to like leave an audio message to like my team on Slack instead of typing everything out, I will always do that. Like I'm always gearing like toward audio more because I just find it faster, but I also find it like it's obviously much more like stream of conscious, right? Like I can just sit here and like talk through and not have to like spend 10 minutes typing out an answer and deleting typos and just kind of I don't have to worry about all that.
Right.
And I could just like it feels like I can have a conversation with people. So I'm really curious to know like how people are using audio with ChatGPT. Is it kind of like brainstorming or giving ideas, or you could almost like summarize my points here, or like make this more cohesive? I don't know.
Right. Well, and I also think with that, sometimes when you're using these like technology systems, it kind of feels robotic, like what they're giving you back, and it doesn't have a lot of personalization. But I'm also curious to know how other people are trying the voice feature because I wonder if it's going to make the output sound more conversational without you having to say, like, make this sound more conversational. I don't know. That was another thing I thought right when you were saying that
Mhm.
because I'm the same way with a voice memo. It's so easy. And I'm not thinking through delete, like you said, or like typo. I'm just going to say it. So
Mhm.
that's something I even need to try.
So so I attended an AI presentation like a year ago, and I remember like having like this moment during the AI presentation. This wasn't what she was teaching, but it was like an idea I had during the presentation of like, I'm recording podcasts all the time, which then the podcast gives you a transcript based on the audio files. But like when I come home from a trip, trying to communicate everything that I just experienced on that trip and everything that I saw and that I did and that I want to like talk about from a marketing perspective and
Hmm.
trying to like download that to either my team, to other travel advisors, or to like someone helping me with marketing, like social media newsletters or whatever. It feels so laborious to have to like sit down and like type all that out for anybody, regardless of who it is. And
Right.
what that means is that I don't do it, right? Or like I don't do it
Right.
to the fullest like detail that I could.
Of course.
Whereas the idea that I had last year listening to this presentation, I was like, why don't I just record myself like in a podcast? Like it's just me, but I'm just using like the podcast software to like record it like an audio message. And so then you can get a transcript from that. And then the marketing person could actually like take that and do something with it. And I think that what you're describing, which is now possible with a chat GPT or any of the AI tools, is it's like one level enhanced, like it's one level better. So instead of podcast to transcript to now try to like pull out some random social media captions from a transcript, which is still a lot of work,
Right.
right? Now,
True. Right.
am I understanding correctly that I could speak into an AI tool like, hey, I'm at, this hotel in London, and here are my notes. This is what I definitely want to remember. This is what I love the most. These are the types of clients I would totally send here. And then just ask ChatGPT or whatever to like summarize my notes. and like put it into bullet points or like turn it into a social media caption? Like, am I thinking
Yes.
about how to use that correctly?
Mm,
Like, could I do that?
you are. And essentially, like for the example of me going through those presentation slides and saying XYZ, whatever I was saying to it, Gemini gave, for instance, since I was using it, gave me back like, here's what you should say, or here's how you should say it. And each slide title was a bullet point. So it automatically put that right into
Okay.
bullets. I didn't even actually ask, which in that case, I was like, oh, awesome. I didn't need it, but it was kind of cool. And then it also made it flow. So I did give it like a ton of information similar to what you were saying. Like, I'm in London, I like this property, and I'm going from here to here. And maybe, when you're just kind of brain dumping, you're not thinking of the order you're brain dumping things in.
Yeah.
But when
Yeah.
you're saying it to that AI tool, it at least in Gemini, when I was just doing this, it organized it to be very conversational. So it makes me think, and I'm not safe to assume, I will definitely double check and try this,
Yeah.
that it
Now I'm
would
going to try
also
this.
organize that. Yeah, exactly. And make it so much,
Yeah.
those notes so much clearer.
Well, just so much cleaner, but then if you can also say like, okay, now like turn these into notes, but then you could also say like now turn that into a social media caption to highlight
Exactly.
like why you should stay at this hotel or why you should visit this city, like whatever it is that you're chatting about, that you
Yeah,
could even take it one step further and kind of help you with the marketing components and not just the
exactly.
summarizing.
Right. Right.
Amazing. I'm going to try that. I just
Yeah.
came up with a new
No,
idea.
me too.
I'll report back and tell you, "Oh, so this doesn't work."
Yes, keep me
I
posted.
hope it does though. Yeah. Okay, so tell me how else for travel advisors who are like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, AI again. This is an ongoing topic. Here's what I have to say to you all who are thinking that and listening. This isn't going away." So during one of these conversations, you will decide to just grasp on and lean in with us. But for advisors who are not yet using AI at all, or they're using it very minimally, and they just need some like general ideas of like, what are travel advisors doing with this? How should I be using this tool? Can you just give us like low hanging fruit? Like, start here. This is the easiest place to start. This isn't a heavy lift. Like, just get your feet wet by doing this. Like, where would you guide them to start?
I would guide someone to essentially, first and foremost, let me back up, make their prompt, and we can go over that in a second, and how they want to talk to or tell AI who they need to be. But the at least topic or subject I think that they should start on would be blog post generation or website copy ideas, because I feel like this is one of the easiest places to start. For example, in the presentation that I did a while back, I used the example of, you are a travel advisor who specializes in family trips, and your typical client's budget is between $25,000 and $100,000. You want people who are reading your website or seeing your website and reading your blog posts to be engaged. What are some great blog post ideas to write about, essentially to like match your target demographic of the people you want booking with you? And it gave me a list of like 10 different blog post titles, and a few were like luxury charters in the Mediterranean, how to, trips for teens. Like, I mean, it gave me so many different ideas. And I feel like that's the perfect place to start, because the idea generation, I don't want to say is easy, but it kind of comes naturally to both, to you, and AI can give you tons. You can say, I didn't like that. It'll redo it and give you 10 more. Like, I think that's a good place to like familiarize yourself with how it works and what it's going to give you.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. So blog generation is a good idea because, or like website copy too, but like blog generation specifically, if that's not something that you're really loving or that you're really into, like any
Right.
tool to help make that a little bit easier is welcome, I think.
Yes. Yes. I completely agree.
So, how are you seeing advisors who are loving AI, who are using it daily in their workflows, and who are just all about it? How are they using it? Like, where are you seeing their biggest wins?
When asking a few advisors, a few weeks ago, I heard that a really good place that they felt like they kind of wanted to maximize their time was in the sense of like building packing lists, emails, like sending out, hey, here's what you need to pack for this, or here's what you should remember, here's what to include. That on like one side. And then on the other side, I even heard few advisors saying that they were using spreadsheets that they created in Excel and putting that into Copilot and asking Copilot to identify the trends or, the median age of the past 6 months of their clients that have traveled. So like I've seen it kind of on both sides, but I think like the biggest thing I've noticed is they're using it to maximize their time to the fullest. Like any admin or no, I shouldn't say tedious task because that's not correct, but a task that they feel like would take a good amount of time out of their day to really be like looking through or like figuring out, they've been able to have AI help generate the response or the data in that case and feed it right back to them like instantaneously.
So I've never heard of someone uploading a spreadsheet of data into
Me,
an AI tool.
that was a first. And I even remember looking at them and saying, oh, like that's a great idea. And I remember saying like, they were like, that would be really helpful with this. And I was like, let me know how it goes. Cause I thought the same thing. I was like, oh,
Interesting. I'm trying to
yeah.
think of like, because I like have a gazillion spreadsheets, but I'm trying to think of like how I would even
And
use that. Hmm.
I think the specific way they did it, like now that I'm thinking back to it, they may have like copy and pasted the exact data of the spreadsheet or took a screenshot. I know
Sure.
now you can
Okay.
upload. Yeah. Cause I do need to follow
Mhm.
up on the exact way, but I remember when they said it, I was like, oh, that never even crossed my mind.
I know. I feel like that's like AI in a nutshell is like the way that people are using it. It's like, oh, that never even crossed my mind.
Yep.
So I think
Exactly.
prompting feels like the biggest challenge to me personally. So when you are wanting to guide or coach advisors on coming up with the best prompts to get the best results, because I think that you said that middle group of advisors that you were kind of describing at the beginning. It's like they're using it, but they're feeling pretty meh about it. It's like, okay, I'm using it, but I'm not that impressed with the results, or I don't feel like it's really, like saving that much time or giving me that great of information. So I would venture to guess that that's generally going back to the prompts, right? Of like,
Yes.
it's not just using the tool, you also really need to be prompting it correctly, but also kind of creatively.
Definitely. I think the best tip of advice to remember is you get what you give because that was like one of the turning points with a few people that I talked to. I said like, well, you're giving it basically a sentence and then expecting it to give you, like a paragraph or two. It,
Paragraph. Hmm.
in order to get the best response, you need to be able to give it a detailed prompt. And I think the best place to start is to say who is AI. So in the case of me and what I tell ChatGPT, I say you are the communication specialist at Gifted Travel Network, a host agency for luxury travel advisors. And then the what. So I told it exactly who it is, what I need it to do. In an example case, we'll say I need it to create a 5 series email campaign to highlight all of our member benefits. And the member benefits are this, and this, whatever those may be, and give the detail on what those are. And then what the goal is of what I'm giving it. So I told it who it is, it's me. I told it what it needs to do, create the 5 series email campaign. And then what do I want out of that? And essentially, in this case, I could say, I want these emails to be engaging, fun, informative, conversational, and I want a high open rate. So please ensure you give me engaging subject lines, something like that.
Hmm.
So that's
Hmm.
what I want out of it. I want it to be friendly. I want people to read it. I want a lot of open rates. So here you go. And let me hear it. Instead, I could have just said, you work for a travel company. I need 5 emails to tell people why what they should use or how they should utilize their member benefits. The first
Right.
prompt was better than the second. Right.
Well, I think that that's a really good I think it's a really good example to kinda hear you talk through that and to really highlight the fact that AI is not doing the work for you. I think like this the fear around AI is often the belief that it's gonna literally take jobs away or that it's gonna, diminish people's careers or whatnot. But every time I hear a really good use case of AI, it's not doing the work for anyone. It's enhancing the work that they're already doing. So you still had to put in all of that information of this is my role, this is where I work, this is what I want the email campaign to be. You had to use your own marketing strategy and expertise and know how to say, I want an email campaign that is 5 emails long, that has a high open rate. This is the goal and this is how I want it to be communicated. Like that's all coming from you and your marketing expertise and your know-how, right? And
Correct.
then
Correct.
it's just enhancing everything that you put in. It's not coming up with all of
Exactly.
this out of
No. Now, I do know another, I guess, to this is like, let's say you didn't know to do that. I think the other way you can look at it is with the prompt again, tell it who it is, and then say, we have 300 advisors, and we're noticing that they're not utilizing their member benefits in the highest form. What would be a great way to communicate this out to them with keeping in mind that now again, you have to have this knowledge, so I get it. Knowing that they open emails, they're not as much looking at like a portal post or a Facebook post or whatever it may be. And I think create if you didn't know, the prompt will create maybe that email campaign for you. But like you said, I already knew, so I specifically knew what I wanted my output to be. If you didn't, you can question it, but you still need to know who you are, what you want, and what the goal of you asking AI to do this for.
who you are, what you want, and what is the goal? Like what is the end result that we're shooting for, basically?
Exactly.
So you mentioned like an email drip campaign is like a use case for how a travel advisor could use this. So if we just kind of brainstorm together, like how might a travel advisor do this? They introduce themselves as the owner of a travel agency with the name, maybe identifying their current clients or their ideal target clients and telling the AI tool like as much about those target clients as possible. Like the more the better, I would imagine.
Yep.
And then asking it to draft like let's say 3 emails on a specific topic, specifically sharing X, Y, and Z. And maybe it's about a destination, maybe it's about how to
Mhm.
work with them, but they should be including like these are the 3 or 4 key points that I want these emails to communicate.
Correct. So, like,
Is that how you would is that how
that
you would
would
do that?
be that is exactly how you would do that. Because I was just about to say, like, I thought in my mind, I'm like, what would those key points be? But you're right. Like, if it was to schedule a meeting, book a trip, or encourage them to schedule a meeting, get on your calendar what the meeting's about, and then book a trip, it could create those emails to be like, and here's what your next steps will be. Here's how we do it. Here's what our goal is. Yeah. So, yes, spot on.
And if it was more like destination focused, it could be, I mean, the basic ideas of any destination are kind of like who's going to love this destination? What are the top hotels there? What are the most unique experiences you can look forward to? When should you go? How to budget for a trip to that destination? How long are you going to need? Like those are the kind of like high level topics that you could ask to be included in like an email campaign about a destination.
Exactly. And I think that the biggest thing with that too, which is perfect, as a travel advisor, you know the answers, or you might not. Maybe you've never been to the destination. You're just not relying, but you're researching, I should say. You can take out what AI put in for you because it might not be the best. Maybe the list of hotels, you're like, those, I'm not sure about those. But at least you have a starting point, and that would save you more time right off the bat than trying to build every single one of those emails.
Well, so on that note, like if we go back to like the very beginning when we were talking about like doing a destination download, coming home from a trip, So you come home from a trip and you say, like, okay, I'm just back from Scotland and I want to build, like, you are a luxury travel advisor, you're the owner of this business, like you really like create that profile, you describe your clients so that they know who they're talking to, and then
Mhm.
you actually provide all this information of like, I want to create a 3 email sequence highlighting these are my 3 favorite properties in all of Scotland or in
Yep.
Edinburgh, for example. These are the experiences that you've probably never heard of that I'm most excited to like share and highlight,
Mhm.
and this is the best time to travel there. And like you could actually, like you said, we are the experts. So ideally, we are giving the answers, but we're giving the answers in like a very conversational,
Yes.
not succinct, not necessarily professional type of way. And then asking ChatGPT to clean it up and make it a little bit nicer, as opposed to
Yes.
saying, "We don't know the top hotels in Scotland. ChatGPT, you tell us." Like, hopefully that's not the approach. The approach is these are the 3
Yes.
hotels that we wanna highlight, make it
Right.
sound beautiful.
Right. Right. And what is the best way to highlight these in the email? Should I introduce the 3 hotels? Should I go into like, you must stay here, all the details, here, all the details? Yes, exactly.
Or for families, I love this hotel. For honeymooners, I
Right.
love this hotel. For couples, I love this hotel. Now write 3 sentence, beautiful description of each type of thing.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. This is I almost feel like AI feels paralyzing sometimes because there's so much opportunity in terms of like what you could potentially do with it, that then often I personally find myself just being like, "Doo doo, where to start?" Like, kind of like the blinking cursor on a blank document of just like,
Yes.
there's a million ideas, so which one should I start with? And then I do nothing. It does feel a little bit like that. Okay, so we talked about website, we talked about email drip campaigns. How else are you thinking about using AI specifically as it relates to content and copy, and how can it really enhance what we're already doing every day as travel professionals?
2 points I realized this is perfect that I didn't touch on were newsletter. At GTN, we encourage all of our advisors to start building that. We call it a weekly e-zine or your weekly newsletter. And ChatGPT slash Gemini slash whatever AI tool you want to use, you can 100% put the prompt in of who you are, what your travel business is, who your ideal client is, and say, can you help me create an outline to a news? I need to start my newsletter. I need an outline. I don't know where to begin. The blinking cursor, because that probably is how a ton of people GTN feel right off the bat when they're starting, but it will give you a synopsis of different sections, what to include, how you should you can ask it how your intro should sound. Should your intro be short, long? So I think that's another great place to start is newsletter.
Can you work backwards? So instead of putting in the content that you know about, like, okay, maybe you're an expert about Scotland and you're just like word vomiting all the things about Scotland and then asking it to make it sound succinct and professional and whatnot. Can you kind of reverse engineer it and say, okay, I'd like to write an email that highlights Scotland as a destination and why a traveler should consider this for their next trip? What questions should I answer? And then, like, does that work to reverse engineer it if you ask the AI tool, like, I don't even know what information to share with you because I'm so deep in the weeds. Like, tell me what topics I should talk about or tell me what questions to answer.
Definitely. Yeah, I think you definitely could say essentially, and like you said, word vomit. I have all this information. I don't even know where to start. Like if you were someone interested or not interested or didn't know anything about the destination, what would you want to know from the information that I know and I'm giving you? And it could reverse that and be like this, and this. However, I think this is a perfect opportunity to say, in this instance, you might have to ask it a few times. The first time you might have to say, for people who have no idea, obviously written better than that. Or, people who have been to Scotland before but might not have gone to these areas, or not even that, just people who have gone before. Or maybe my travelers who go to Scotland every 3 years, I don't know, just to make it up. But I want to show them something brand new that they've never seen before. And here's everything I have. It could definitely tell you, like, well, this is not, because it's essentially looking up stuff on Google or the things it's been fed. So it might be able to catch those specifically for each of those groups. But I would suggest prompting that, editing your prompt a few different times, because I think trying to ask it everything at once, like for people who have never been there or for brand new cool things that no one knows about, it might kind of just give you a bunch of stuff and you might be like, this is too big. So, yeah.
Yeah, it could be kind of like start simple. So I want to write a
Yes.
newsletter about Scotland for people who've never been. What questions should I answer?
Yes. Yes. And it'll give you
I
the basic answers.
Yeah, and like I have no idea what type of response that would be, but then I think that you also make a really good point of like continue to dig deeper. So ask more questions or and just like I think if there's anything I've learned is like A, the prompt is key and B, the first answer is never usually the answer that you end up with. Like you want to
Yes.
keep digging and asking it for more and asking it to continue refining. And then
Correct.
that's kind of going down that rabbit hole is where you find the information or the prompt or the actual thing that you want to take from it and then use in your business.
Correct. That is exactly it. And never be, I always tell people, never be afraid to say, no, that was not what I asked for, or not what I wanted. I always think that in my head. But I also have written out before, back to the like language model. I asked you for this, that output was not correct, because then it'll say back to you, thank you for the feedback. And I always think in my mind, like, okay, well, at least I'm helping it understand that, like, the question I asked it, the answer it gave me was not the question I asked. It just kind of spit something back out. So let's refine this again. And you might have to do it a few times. And I think that's what sometimes will frustrate people, or they'll say, like, I thought this was supposed to help me and make my life like easier and make things quicker. Just start out when you're first using it. Always kind of keep going back and going back. It the tools have a memory, so they know what you've asked it previously, or it will remember
Mhm,
specific
mhm.
things. But it's always good to refine and go back and kind of just have a little bit of patience as you work through it.
So yeah, so you talked about I think did you say it was ChatGPT that knows you and that you have like a relationship? Was it
Yes.
ChatGPT?
Yep. So weird to
So
say, but yes.
how no, but I mean it is weird to say and also like I know exactly what you mean. So how how is that built? So do you kind of when you start on any AI tool or language learning model, do you kind of put in all of this information about who you are, what your business is, your brand voice, your target ideal clients, all this kind of stuff. And then do you only have to do that once and then it just kind of gets to know you from there? Or like, how does that work in terms of like building a relationship with an AI tool?
Yes and no. So definitely at the beginning, put in all of that information, like dive deep, make sure that this tool you're using understands who you are, and how you sound, what you want, the communications that it's giving you to sound like and be like, essentially. But as you continue using it, I always like to, for like best practice, I one day will be asking it about email stuff, let's say, for instance. And then the next day, I might be asking it about a press release paragraph that I didn't like the way I wrote it. I just think it could be tweaked a little bit. So I always go back when I'm kind of switching gears and say, like, you are writing this press release to be published on the website and it will be shared with media contacts. I want it to be clear, concise. And can you essentially help me with this one paragraph, tweak this paragraph a bit to sound more clear, concise, or brand congruent, just so it
Mm.
knows. And then every time it'll always say at the bottom for me, it'll be like memory updated. So it'll
Oh,
know what I said. Yeah. And it'll kind of just refine it to the way or to what I'm writing and speaking to.
this is really interesting that it's like we as business owners and as people who are using the AI tool don't change, but who we are communicating with is constantly changing.
Right.
And so
Yes.
that's kind of what the tool needs to know and needs to understand of like today via a newsletter, you're talking to a young honeymoon couple who is interested to go to Croatia. And
Mhm.
tomorrow you might be releasing a press release to media contacts, and
Right.
then the next day you might be emailing your entire newsletter about like an international natural disaster that has occurred. Like it's not about who you are. It is about who you are in your business and your brand voice, but it's also about who you're talking to.
Correct.
I think that's a really I don't know that I'd ever like connected the dots quite like that before. But that's like really important to specify.
Right, because I feel like there have been times it'll give me something and I'll be like, "This is nothing like what I asked for," like, what and I'll get frustrated and I'm like, "Oh, well, Emily, 5 hours ago you were talking about symposium, and then now you're writing a press release about conference." Obviously, because it's done that. It's been like, announcing the 2025 symposium, and I was like, "Wait, the press release I just asked for was for conference," and then I realized I never fed it the I just went straight into it, and never fed it that actual information. It's like, "No, now we're on a different subject," like, I almost wanted to be like, "Keep
Mhm,
up," but then I'm
mhm.
like, "Well, obviously, you can't keep up if I don't tell it."
You probably will be able to someday.
I know.
Keep up. I'm one step ahead of you. Crap. You
Right.
are. Oh, that's amazing. Okay. How is there anything else that you've really seen kind of I feel like you've connected a lot of dots for me today. Have you seen these kind of connections with other advisors just in your presentations or in conversation with advisors of just like trying to connect the dots to help people see like all the potential ways you can use it, how to maximize the use of it, how to really like enhance your day-to-day workflow because any tool that we use, we want it to enhance. We want it easier. Yes, but sometimes it's I think you made a comment earlier that was like I thought this was supposed to make my job easier. And I think that the assumption that tools are supposed to make our lives easier and quicker is true sometimes. Like that is why we use a lot of the tools and systems that we do. But I've started to like really see a difference between tools that are all about optimization and there are other tools that it's like this isn't going to make the job any faster. This newsletter is still probably going to take an hour for me to write, but the end product is going to be far better using this tool than had I just done everything by myself.
Exactly.
So, tool, I think that that's a really important distinction to like understand what the goal is and what you're trying to get from that tool. Like, is it truly optimization, systematization, working efficiently, getting things done faster? Or is this a tool that is just still the same amount of time, probably still the
Yep.
same amount of effort, but the end product is far superior? That's still a valid
Exactly.
use case of a tool. And that tool is still very, very valuable to you, even if it's not like quote unquote saving you time.
And exactly, because that I think after our conference when I did my presentation, that is what I noticed, to be honest with you, was like the light bulb moment or the understanding of me as the advisor, this AI tool, like you said, the integration, because a few people ask questions like, "Well, I don't understand if it's going to take me this much time, like, is it ever going to pay off? Because why would I take the time now if I don't even have the time?" And I remember answering one of the questions, and I was like, let's not even focus on the time. Let's just focus on the fact that regardless of if you have to write that 200-word statement or that 6-paragraph long email that you've been putting off, it's going to help you with a starting point, like we discussed earlier. First and foremost. Second off, you're still going to sit there and you're still probably going to look at that blank screen and be like, I still don't want to do this. I still don't want to do this. You're taking time up no matter which way you're looking at it. At least let this help you with the starting point, help you tweak things, help you kind of enhance what you're doing. It might not save you time because you still have to write it into the system, but it's going to, like you said, put you kind of in a better place. And you're going to realize it feels more efficient because you're getting that output and you're like, okay, yes, like let's do it. And maybe that's the one thing that gets you moving on it. I don't know. But
I
yes,
think I am I'm very much like an ROI, what's in this for me type of person when it comes to optimizing my workflow and trying to like, I'm going to pay for a tool and it's going to save me this much time. And so I definitely understand the the human nature that leads us to
yes,
ask that question of like, well, if I'm still going to spend an hour doing this with or without ChatGPT, then what's the ROI of learning it, getting
exactly.
used to using it and getting better at it, potentially paying for it? Because we know that any tool that's offered free, if it offers a paid version, it's just a matter of time because the paid version's
Yep.
always better, right? So like then we're
Right.
probably going to pay for it. So like I definitely understand, and this is my human nature as well, to be like, well, what's the ROI? Like what do I get out of spending time and or money on this? And I think
Right.
it's I'm trying to find like a really like just easy down to earth like way to describe this. It's like if you are writing a newsletter that thanks to AI is communicating more professionally, more succinctly, more it's more clearly articulated, it's in your brand voice even better than you can write by yourself, and
Yep.
that means that one newsletter to the next to the next to the next is consistent, and
Correct.
ultimately if those consistent newsletters being sent out from your inbox every single week ultimately drives a new inquiry because they were
Right.
professionally presented, they were consistent, they were on brand, they were inspiring, then the ROI is there in that new
Correct.
inquiry. The ROI
Correct.
doesn't always come immediately in that moment that you spent an
Right.
hour with our AI or an hour without AI.
AI.
The ROI is that the product or the information that you put out into the world, thanks to that tool, is better than
Exactly.
without it. And that
Exactly.
better product is going to drive business back into your business. It's going to drive inquiries and interest.
Right. That was perfectly said. That was exactly it.
Perfect. Now I wonder how AI would make that better.
Yeah. We need to put it in.
Explain this more clearly. I just think of when you can look for opportunities to enhance anything, I've even kind of had to pull myself out of the weeds a little bit and remind myself it's not always about saving time. It's not always about spending $15 a month and then gaining back $30 a month, thanks to this tool.
Right.
It's not always so black and white and an even exchange. It's not, sometimes it is, right?
Right.
Sometimes it's like this itinerary builder enabled me to go from planning an itinerary and like doing it in Canva or whatever we were doing previously in 3 hours. And now I do it in one, like boom, ROI. Like sometimes it
Right. You
is like
see
that.
it. It
Yeah,
makes
and you
sense.
feel
Right.
it, like, immediately, right? But it's
Correct.
not there are ways to gain a lot of ROI from a tool or just from a workflow or a perspective as to, like, how
Right.
to approach something that are not always so black and white or so immediate, and I think it's important that we
Right.
look for those opportunities as well.
I completely agree because they will surprise you. I think like the email drip campaign, sure, I had a little bit of the knowledge, but what if, like you said, that email drip campaign was the reason all those leads you had that interacted with you on social media, never booked anything, are the reason that was what convinced them to book with you? Well, they probably ChatGPT, some type of AI form technology thing, made you write those, made you essentially make the sequence. So who knows?
Absolutely. Any final thoughts for us, Emily? This is every time I talk about AI with anyone, I take away nuggets and I take away like a totally different thought on like how powerful these tools are. And I just think like if you're not using these, like we're really leaving a lot on the table, I would say, like just really missing a great opportunity. What are you most excited about as someone who's just like geeking out over AI all the time and using multiple tools and building relationships with multiple tools? That sounds so funny, but that's happening. what are you most excited about? I know ChatGPT just upgraded to 4.0, and so now they have audio where they previously didn't. Like, what are you seeing in the world that you feel most excited about right now?
I think truly I'm most excited to see and to learn, weird as it sounds, how other people are using it and what they're doing that I'm not doing, that I didn't even have a clue existed. That I love. I love information and finding out things and seeing what people are doing, because then I take it and I just somehow tie it into what I'm doing. I always try to find a way,
Mhm.
but I'm
Mhm.
truly excited for any of the upgrades of the systems. But yeah, to see what other people are doing and how I can steal that, copy it, and use it.
Are there any like newsletters or Instagram accounts or like podcasts? Is there anything that you are consuming on a regular basis that keeps your creativity flowing in terms of AI? Just like, is there anybody talking about how they're using it or providing like tangible use case scenarios that's giving you ideas? Like anything we could add to our Rolodex of information?
Of information. I did look the other day. There is the name of a podcast, and I'm gonna get the name for you because I completely am drawing a blank. I did earlier though, just type into podcast. Like I have an iPhone, so I just went right to the app. And I literally put like artificial intelligence, or I put like AI copywriting, and a bunch of podcasts just came up with a ton of different episodes. And I was like, oh,
Oh,
I didn't even,
interesting.
right. And I was actually looking for the specifically named podcast that I cannot find, that an advisor, a GTN advisor actually gave me. And I will find it and I will get you the name of it. But I kind of just thought like, oh, why not just look? And yeah, a ton just came up. So I like looking there. I also think LinkedIn has so many resources. That's another place. I kind of will just be
Really?
scrolling and stuff will come up. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I did
Hmm.
just Google like top AI copywriting podcasts and like 15, 20 options just came up right at the top of Google. Who
Right.
knows which one you were looking for, but like
I know.
it's definitely a topic that folks are talking about a lot.
It is. And I love that too, because I think like my advice to anybody, I always say, even like my mom, when I was explaining things to her, I was like, just try it, just use it. Even if it's for the first time, even if it's for something like a Facebook post and you just feel like the way you're writing something doesn't make sense, try it. You might love it.
Yeah.
That's what I always say.
Huh? I love it. Emily, thank you so much for just kind of sharing a little bit of your experience working very closely with travel advisors on a daily basis and just kind of coaching them, guiding them, encouraging
Mhm.
them, inspiring them to use AI. I love all of this. And I think I'm right there with you. I just am now going to geek out over all the different ways that people are using AI and what ideas they have and what types of results they're getting. So maybe on Instagram, we can gather some ideas from people just to learn how others are using it and just prompts. I think I'm always looking for inspiration in like how do you prompt AI? So
Right.
maybe we can have a little fun chat on Instagram and see what people are up to.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.